Hello to everybody, and thank you very much for coming and joining us for this afternoon round table. All those who are in this room and also those who watch us and participate while streaming from Germany or abroad. We are very interested also in having an international audience, and I think this is a good opportunity to have some thoughts, to exchange some thoughts on one of the topics that are really, I'd say, are kind of hot shit at the very moment. And for this reason, I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Vodafone Foundation and the Weizenbaum Institute for the Networked Society. We are very happy to organize this round table. And we would like to start with a some short remarks from Gergana and Vladova. Just to bring you into the topic, we've seen some remarkable dates in the last year, also some disturbing dates. We remember the 24th of February last year when Russia attacked Ukraine. Now we've seen the 7th of October this year when Hamas had made these brutal attacks in Israel. But there was also the 30th of November last year when ChatGPT version 3 was published, was open to the public. So this might be also at least an astonishing date. It gained 1 million users within 5 days and 100 million users within 2 months. That was a new world record for internet-based speed of growth. Before that, the world record was held by TikTok, who managed to get 100 million users within 9 months. But there have been generative artificial intelligence tools also since around 2018. But at that time, probably the discussion was only among experts, and it was no broad-wide public usage of that. Since last November, it's, as I said, some kind of hot shit. But what does that actually really mean now after almost 1 year? We want to have a deep dive into this, and I would like first to introduce Mrs. Vladova, who will give us some remarks. She's head of the research group Education for the Digital World at the Weizenbaum Institute in Berlin, and the chair of business informatics at the University of Potsdam. Her research experience comes from various research projects, particularly on learning with digital technologies and artificial intelligence, competence development, and knowledge and innovation management. And she's actively involved in quite a number of international and interdisciplinary research projects. Thank you very much for having you here. The floor is yours.
On? Yeah, thank you. I would just start with an ask. I would like you to picture a long day at work. There are some challenging issues, there are some new to-dos, and then there is a traffic jam once again on the way home. So you arrive home tired and you want to talk about your problems. And now imagine a partner is there for you, asks you questions and listens to your story, and you feel good. However, what if this partner is not human but artificial? Does this change your willingness to talk or the satisfaction with the conversation? So similar thoughts should have the computer pioneer Joseph Weizenbaum when developing the first or one of the first chatbots, Eliza, 60 years ago. His Eliza played the role of questions asking psychologist. And to his surprise, the conversation with this computer has been perceived as a human-like by many of the users. So nowadays we have much more experience with technology and its impact on individuals and society. There have been studies that illustrate the positive as well as the negative effects. And even if you are real skeptics, the temptation to use new technology is very powerful because of fun, of enrichment, or of support. So technology is becoming more and more exciting and enticing and more present. And now picture once again, a teacher at school or university has a classroom with many students, each of them unique, and a limited time to spend with them and to assist them learning before the next class starts. So teaching can be exciting and exhausting. As a teacher, you must prepare your lessons, check homework and exams to be objective and to have the right feeling when to be subjective. So you somehow wish to have a partner like this I introduced at the beginning, so who can answer your needs. And ChatGPT is now just repeating a history that Eliza has written. And ChatGPT is just one example, just one prominent example, because artificial intelligence in general is already used to assess learning outcomes, to make recommendations to close learning gaps, or to adapt learning to individual needs. And it's speculated that its role will increase and that this tool at the moment will become an actor that takes over all tasks of a teacher. So this is a very ambitious and complex vision that includes many aspects of interpersonal relationship and established social structures, and that requires a lot of research. And it's not a surprise that the number of published papers on AI of teaching in higher education, for example, during the last 10 years increased more than 10-fold per year. And it's heavily dominated at the moment by China or the United States, and has a strong focus on student performance, for example. Recently, I tried a metaverse classroom at the university as part of a global classroom with the University of Hong Kong. And after the learning experience as avatars in this metaverse, it becomes obvious that we need more studies conducted in different countries to understand and create different cultural approaches to AI's use in education. And in another research study, gave me insights how AI influences our communication structures. So we conducted a learning experiment at the university and let the intelligent voice assistant Alexa play the teacher. And my team found the students ask completely different questions if Alexa replaces the teacher. So many more questions, but mainly on definitions of factual knowledge. And these are just examples to show how complex and complicated this topic is. However, nowadays education is a social good of enormous importance. Learners are increasing in numbers and in diversity, and school education is compulsory. Universities are increasingly attended, and continuing education and lifelong learning is actually the norm. Teachers are faced with new challenges that go beyond transferring knowledge. So they have to avoid lack of differentiation in the classroom. They have to ensure equal education for all, regardless of learners, whether learners live in rural areas or in large cities, to actively involve learners, to develop competencies such as problem solving or creative thinking. And one focus of school-based education is acquiring social and emotional skills, cooperation, responsibility, respect for others, life skills that make children not only capable workers tomorrow, but also responsible citizens. So AI in education doesn't enter a green field, but a brown field with established practices developed over centuries. And there are a lot of questions. Which roles could be played by artificial intelligence? Should it as non-human shape social behavior? And how would that affect ethical, social, or cultural values, which to date have also been expression of human development? And the answers are essential today, but much more for tomorrow's world. I would like to finish like this. When I came from Bulgaria to Germany more than 20 years ago, I knew little about life here. And for my parents who supported this decision, it was also something completely new. They grew up in a world in which traveling to or living in Western Europe was impossible. Years later, I asked them how they felt. And one answer was, they didn't know what the future will bring, but they knew I have a key competence, the German language that I have learned intensively at school for years. And I have to think about this now when my child is entering a world that I do not really know from experience. Now that my personal history is somehow being repeated, I want also to be confident that she has the key competences, and for this I'm sure they include knowledge about AI. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Gergana. I now would like to introduce our participants on the panel. Next to my right side is Mrs. Diana Knodel. She is a founder and CEO of fobizz. That's Germany's largest online training platform for teachers and schools. Your passion for education drives your mission to bring digital skills into the classroom. Your contributions to that topic have earned you some quite remarkable recognition as one of the top women shaping the country's digital landscape in educational questions. In 2019, you received the Hamburg Honorary Award for Special Commitment from the Senate of Hamburg. And just recently, a few weeks ago, you succeeded in being the national winner of the KfW, that is Kreditanstalt für Wiederaufbau Award, Gründen or founding. So congratulations also from my side for this special achievement. Then we have as next one Professor Niels Pinkwart. He is Vice President for Academic Affairs at the Humboldt-Universität in Berlin. You've moved to Humboldt-University in 2013, and you also had the research group Computer Science Education and Computer Science and Society. And in addition, you also act as Scientific Director of the Educational Technology Lab at the DFKI Berlin, Deutsches Forschungszentrum für Künstliche Intelligenz. And then we have Mrs. Professor Katharina Scheiter. She's professor in digital education at the University of Potsdam since May 2022. She investigates how education and technology can best support students' achievement and how teachers can be aided in integrating technology into their classrooms with a focus on adaptive education technologies, which of course means AI-supported technologies. In 2023, this year, you assumed leadership of a large consortium of university research institutions and foundations funded by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research with a focus on advancing teacher profession, advancing the teacher professional development in the digital age. It's called Kompetenzverbund Lernen Digital. So we have heard about, Gergana, you've spoken a bit in your closing remarks about the world of your parents, of your world, and the world of your child, which leads me to the question now, are we at the moment, at the dawn of a new world? Is what we observe at the moment rather a kind of revolution? Or is it, could it be better described as one major but still an evolutionary step? So, or in other words, would it be rather a kind of paradigm shift, if I might quote Thomas Kuhn, or will it be rather some kind of piecemeal engineering, quoting Raimund Popper? Who wants to give some comments on that?
Let's start with a philosophical question now. So I think it's a huge change that is currently happening in education. But if we consider how long it will actually take to really benefit education and how much things we still have to investigate and to also to change in the practice of teaching, I think it's a stepwise endeavor. So that would be my yes and no answer.
Yeah, I have a similar answer, but I think it is really an important milestone in the development of AI, what we've seen. There have been others, and some of them have weaved into our lives so that we are not aware of them anymore. There was once this moment where a computer would win in chess against humans, and everyone was saying, ooh. And at some point in time, we were able to talk to machines that are in our homes, and everyone was, "Ooh." Today, it's our normal life. But I think the significant change that come with the public release of ChatGPT is specifically for education, that it's from that moment on, it was impossible to ignore it. And I think that is a change that affects many educational institutions, that not only the persons who want to go with AI have to think about it, but now all, because there is also some threats and unconsciousness that goes along with it. So it's really a big milestone from my point of view.
Okay, just to add on what the other said, I believe it is a revolution, but we don't know it yet, mostly. But what we've seen so far in just 1 year since ChatGPT came out, like we had so many big steps, and there's so much potential that lies in the technology. Or maybe we shouldn't even talk about technology, but more like infrastructure, because at some point I believe the AI will more be like energy, for example. It will just be normal for us. It will be included in everything we do. And we probably also won't even have like AI tools anymore, but it will just be part of our daily tools we use. So I believe it is a revolution, and some see it already, but not all. And I think, like, I'm really excited about the next month and years and how this will develop.
I mean, we've seen artificial intelligence already in some tools, like intelligent tutorial systems, which work more on an analytical basis, but not on a generative basis. Although they are not already broadly used, they are focusing on the teacher's role. So my impression is this one also is enabling the students, those who want to learn. And this is maybe a new qualitative step, maybe. I do not know. Do you see, is there a basic difference between these two ways of using artificial intelligence?
You mean using it between students and teachers?
Between using it in the way we had it right now, more in an analytical way, now giving the teacher impression of how the learning development of students will go on, but not generating new content, but only using for analytical purposes.
Yeah, I think that's what you said, that we had it before, but now all of a sudden it's so obvious what it can do and that we feel it and see it. But in general, like what I've also seen, you said we are like doing a lot of online teacher training, professional development, and we've been doing this since 5 years. And when ChatGPT came out and we offered online courses, like we've never had as many like teachers running and coming and wanting to learn about it. In our Zoom room, like it has space for 1,000 persons, and we had like more than 2,000 who wanted to participate. And it was just like great to see that they also felt like, okay, this is something important and something we really need to look at. So so I think it was there before, but it has like a much different pace now.
I think if I add to this, I also think that the public interest, last time it was as high was when COVID broke out, when we had fundamentals of online teaching. That was the same peak. But to your question, I think this is probably not the right way of thinking, that there were these old tutoring systems that were for teachers and with domain models, and now there is the new language-based model, because what we observe in many educational institutions is the wish from all sides, essentially from students and teachers, to combine that, so that language-based technologies can be somewhat educationally framed, so that there is a purpose of having a dialogue with a chatbot, but that chatbot knows about course structures, about the content to be learned, etc. So to weaving the flexibility of interacting with language with a computer, but at the same time having domain knowledge to be underneath that.
Scheiter.
Yeah, but I also see differences. So I can agree with you that there's actually a difference between having instruction, and that's the idea of intelligent tutoring systems, receiving instruction, getting feedback, getting adaptive support from the system, versus the ability of large language models to actually support co-construction of knowledge and really interacting on a very immediate basis with the system and getting into like a tight interaction with the system. And I think this makes a difference. I'm actually wondering whether that also plays a role in when we think about where would AI systems be most suited, or which type of AI systems would be most suited in education. So for basic competencies, I think this idea of having adaptive tutoring systems works quite well. But the higher you go in terms of skill development, and the more it is about working together with a system and actually co-constructing knowledge together in a partnership, in a human technology partnership. And I think that's it is a difference in how we use these systems.
Probably, I think we can agree, it's definitely much easier for everybody to use it. It makes it much more convenient. And in a way, it's a kind of like Steve Jobs when he invented the iPhone. The technology was already there, but he made it, he constructed it in a way, and he adjusted it with a world of apps and tools that everybody now was able to use it. And then but I think that wouldn't that also lead to some other speed and depth of further development? Because as the very moment as you have something like 100, 200, 300 million users, you create data on which artificial intelligence can learn in a much more dynamic way than you have been doing it with some intelligent tutoring systems which go close step by step and only for those teachers who already feel familiar with using that. So isn't that a speeding up process we are just right now observing?
I would say it is speeding up the procedures. I mean, one of the reasons for why intelligent tutoring systems are not as far available as we would love them to be is that they're extremely costly in terms of development and distribution and service. The question is, at what cost comes the speed? So there is a reason why intelligent tutoring systems work so well, and that has been the domain knowledge that has been put into the development of the systems by experts. And the question is, how long will we need to actually train large language models, and what approaches will we need to actually train large language models so that they have the same level of domain expertise that is needed to really provide sophisticated, correct domain responses and feedback to learners.
But there is this synergy that can probably also lead to an increased speed, and that is one of the really big challenges of ITS development that you said, the cost of developing it. We now see papers published which use generative AI to generate courses that can then be used for adaptive learning, so that the generation capabilities are used in that way to generate the images that you require for courses, to generate some of the tasks and these things. So the speeding up can also be done in that way. And I guess one of the real big drivers of this speeding is, of course, the public interest. And that really drives it, that motivates events like that and many other things that have been done in the last year, right?
And just to add on, I think like since we have this like from OpenAI and also others, Anthropic and so, all of a sudden there are a lot of like educational startups or in general startups who build on top of what's there, on top of the technology and create ideas, come up with ideas. So I think this in the long term will also speed up the process of the tutorial systems and the adaptive systems. So I think there's just much more focus and pressure on the topic that eventually helps also to develop new systems.
So we have the advantage of maybe even finding new ways of gaining more resources or use our resources more effectively, especially in a time where education systems, be they schooling system or be they university system, will definitely also have to go on under a situation of shortage. So I don't see the funding, the public funding getting up in never known heights. And I think also when we look at the staff, especially when it comes to teachers, we probably will not see quite a large number of new teachers entering the system. So there's an advantage maybe getting more out of what we have. On the same time, with that speed, do you see the danger that our system, especially when it comes to regulation, using data, regulating access, is maybe overwhelmed because it simply cannot follow the speed? Will
Well-
that stay a balance or a
Well, it's two big questions.
two
The
big
first one is,
questions,
will we get more out of what we have? So we have a teacher shortage. I think it's all over the world, probably. And so how can we support teachers to get more effective or like help them reduce other tasks? And I think this will be possible with AI, but at first it costs more time because we need to train the teachers, we need to equip the teachers, we need to provide the technology. So in the long term, it will save time, but until we get there, it costs time. And I think a lot of times currently, you know, we have such a pressure at schools. I'm mostly working with schools, so it's really, it's not easy to say, okay, now we make sure that the teachers get the training, and it's not just one training, it needs several trainings, especially that's for the second question, the speed we see, you know, and everything develops so fast, so it's, we need to make sure that there is enough time for teachers, but actually for everyone to learn about this, to have time to like dive into AI, understand it. And so, yeah, like it's extremely fast, and I don't know if we can keep up the speed. I don't know what you think.
Do you see that politics already has realized and then reacted to that problem?
I think you're certainly right in your view, I guess, that on the long run it will save time, and at the same time you need to invest that time now. But I think there is really this effect that what I said at the very beginning, it's very hard to now close your eyes and not do anything at all. So that is really a driver. And I think we have seen some remarkably fast reactions from educational institutions in the last year. Of course, not as fast as the AI development. And that is probably something that will not be possible, at least not in the public education sector in Germany. I don't know about other countries represented here, but probably it will be really, really tough to keep the speed. But we have seen reactions in weeks and months in terms of regulations, in terms of guidance for teachers, in terms of papers that have been published also for policies. So I see a relatively fast reaction to that as opposed to other developments that you see in the public sector.
And
Ms. Scheiter, you're working on that problem.
actually, I think this is very important that we keep up with the speed, because one of the dangers certainly is that we come into a situation where the development of artificial intelligence dictates education and then tells us what are educational objectives, and this will then be the objectives that can be reached and achieved with an AI system rather than the objectives that we think are important for students to learn. And I think this is one of the big issues. So how can we keep up control that we decide on what are the educational objectives that we want students to achieve, and what type of world do we prepare them to live in, and rather than just saying, okay, everything is important, what can be supported with an artificial intelligence, and yeah, giving into this speed without having control. I think this is one of the observations that I make, and I think we are currently doing, I would say, a rather good job on having this metacognitive awareness, that we need to be mindful users of AI and not just kind of victims or dependent on artificial intelligence.
I mean, we have various players in this. We have the entrepreneurial side on this, the edtechs who are working on that, who probably will be able to cope with that speed, at least react in a dynamic way. Then we have the research done in universities and non-universitarian research institutions. And of course, we also have the school system and the university system as far as it is defined by the rules, the laws, the political framework. These three players act and work in different ways and rationalities. Do you already see that we are able to form a good partnership of those three in order to get enough speed and also keep the control and have the right framework for giving incentives?
Well, we try to, of course, I mean, we develop AI tools for schools and teachers. So everything we do is always in close partnerships with schools and teachers, because we don't want to develop anything that's not being used. So of course we involve them a lot. And also we work together with universities. Just today we had a call with Ulm, and they're also doing like education there. And so we are talking together about what we can do in order to have like more evidence-based tools, and that we know that like it saves time, or it's good for the learning. And so I think that's really important. And I mean, I can only talk for my own edtech startup, but we are very open for partnerships and corporations, and I think that's really important.
I would also say that the situation could be much worse. I mean, as a research institute, we are working together with a number of companies. It's not only startups, it's also quite known school book publishers, and the product lines of these will also change and embrace AI. And in the relationship between the university and policy making, I think that's also, they are fully aware, both on the federal level, but also here in Berlin. We are in quite close contact, so that the funding lines and all that related policies and frameworks, they consider the development of AI. And so to the extent that, that universities cooperate with schools, you can probably say a lot more about this. But we have also been in touch with a number of schools who consulted research about the use and adoption of AI in education. So that is a remarkable speed. And I would say that the education sector and the practical, so the people who are working in practice, are quite close actually to the research development. It probably was just topped by COVID, where everyone would know the exact new latest studies. So we are really quite okay, I would say, in research communication, adoption and practice.
I think there's a huge difference between this availability of large language models and other things that have happened in education. So to be honest, normally nobody is really interested and is aware of what is happening in education, because there's no tie to the industry and so forth. But this was a situation where suddenly these large language models were in everybody's minds, including parents, including industry, education, pupils who tried out the systems for their homework. So I think that has changed the situation, because there was a lot of pressure onto the educational system to really take care of this issue. And that, in my view, hasn't been the case before. And I think this is kind of a game changer, that there's so much pressure also on politicians, on educational policymakers, to deal with these with this new situation, that they have to act, and which is actually a good thing, I believe.
Well, the first action was securing the legal validity of exams. That was the first sort of fear that they could get quite a number of lawsuits, especially when it comes to the Abitur or of universitarian exams. There's another question whether there will we still have a promotion in university as we used to have. I do not know whether this is something there are ongoing discussions, whether you already have made up your mind. Will there be some kind of...
You think whether Humboldt-University has already abolished the dissertation, or...
Well, at least think about...
No, not yet.
Turning to a more oral principle or whatever.
In effect, some of the exam formats that we have traditionally had, we have encouraged our professors to rethink the way of assessing, and that has led to in some forms to additional oral defenses that may have not been there before, but also to constructive forms, for instance, of using AI within exams to have different versions of text produced or censored by AI, and to think and reflect which is the best one, which is one way of embracing it. So the exam forms have changed, but it has not gone as far that the PhD model has been changed.
Well, we'll see. You already said you're all experts, and you're interested in that topic. probably the key figures will be those who teach at university and schools, which of course is quite a variety of personal openness and adaptation to that. We have seen so far when it comes to digitization that we got something like maybe 25 to 30% who are kind of avant-garde, who feel familiar already with going on and using digital tools and artificial intelligence in their way of teaching. There is something like a 20-25%, at least when it comes to the schooling system, will say, well, that's nothing for me. And I won't cope with that. I will not adapt with that. That is something for the new generation. I go on for the next few years that I'm still in my profession. And then there is something like a majority, like 40-50%, to say, I would like to go on, but I do not feel sure how to do it. That's how we have observed the situation up to now. Does that change? Do we still have to rely on this quarter or third of those teachers and professors who are willing to go on, or can we also count on activating those in the middle of the staff?
So, when we look at what we know from change management processes, one of the big game changers is people feel that the technology that is being introduced solves a problem for them or makes something more efficient, saves resources, and so forth. And I think with many innovations that we had in terms of digital technologies in education, that wasn't always evident. So you really had to use the systems. Systems were complex. It was really hard to immediately see what the benefit from these systems would be. And in some cases, there weren't even so strong benefits to profit from. But with using ChatGPT, for instance, it became quite evident that there is a huge potential, even if you just write your first prompts and try out the system, it became very clear that this is going to be like a change in the educational system. And I think that also made people more motivated to try things out and to just play around with the tool and figure out how it works and how it works for them. For instance, this whole issue of grading or essay scoring, maybe not grading, but essay scoring is a huge relief for teachers if it would work.
So kind of booster. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. So the only thing is you need to get them to try it out. So I think that's the really important thing. And I just spoke to a head teacher. And so he organized a AI workshop. So in Germany, we usually have like 1 or 2 days every year where the whole teacher group comes together and they learn together. It's called schulinterne Lehrerfortbildung, for example, or pedagogical day. How do you say? Pädagogischer Tag. So they do this. And so he asked the teachers beforehand, so how do they feel about it? And there were really many who haven't used it yet and who were really distant, and they were more like worried and afraid. And so they tried it out. And what you said, like there's this one tool that helps them with the essay scoring and the grading. It doesn't do the job for them, but it helps them in the preparation, and it makes a suggestion for them, and then they can build up on this. And when they saw that it actually helps them and saves time, this really made a change. So I think what we really need to do is to expose the teachers to the technology in a safe space, so they can ask questions, they cannot do any mistakes, and then afterwards they can still decide if they want to use it or not, but mostly they see that it benefits them, and then so this is just one nice approach what the one head teacher did, and it worked really well in his school.
I can maybe add with an example from Humboldt-University, which is a project called AI Skills. We launched that before ChatGPT came out, but it's now incredibly helpful. It is about bringing change and embracing AI as a higher education research institution, and it stands on a couple pillars, and each of them is really important. One is to have a technological infrastructure, so to not to really give all the teachers and also all the students the infrastructure, the safe infrastructure, the data protection aware infrastructure, etc. they need. And the second really important thing is that we have set up communities of practice within our university, so that the 20 to 30% that you just mentioned have a format of communicating to the other colleagues who have now seen the need and maybe the motivation to make some change, but who have the question how they can do that and with whom. And that is important that we've found out to do that domain specifically, so that to have maybe natural scientists talk to natural scientists and social scientists to their peers, because the questions differ by field. And the third pillar we have is a qualification format, so that we as an institution thought about what are the competencies that our teachers, but also our students will need to have in the future, so that we have a certificate program to have staff development and also a student preparation for a time where AI will become more relevant. So to have an institutional strategy is, I think, also something that is really of high value there.
Well, I get the impression that when we come to structures and activities in the field of implementing, there's a lot of going on in Germany, and but still you say then we use those techniques and tools. The development of these tools and the software was not made in Germany and is still most of the time not made in Germany. For that to go on and maybe also become a place of development and further enhancing, you need resources. You need financial resources, funding, and you need data structures and the access to data structures. Are there already enough resources in Germany and in Europe to go on developing own artificial intelligence-based tools for education, or do we depend probably also in the next years totally, or more or less totally, on what is developed in either the United States or in East Asia or somewhere else?
Well, the one thing is the infrastructure that's currently mostly coming from the US, or I know China. They are doing a lot in investing in infrastructure. But we do have with Aleph Alpha from Heidelberg, and they just got a I think 500 million investment, which is really nice for Germany, in order to build their language model. So they also want to provide a language model. So I think we see efforts, but compared to US or China, it's still too little if we really want to have like our own language models. But there's also in France this one company. So we see things coming up, and there will in the future, I'm sure there will also be open source models and everything. So we're still in the beginning of this. And I think when it comes to building the tools that work with the language models, for this you don't need that much funding. You know, So that's a different.
You need good ideas probably. And,
and a team and everything.
But still access to data probably.
Yeah, but you usually can use the language models that are out there, either Aleph Alpha or also OpenAI and all the others that are there. Yeah.
I would second that. It's not a desperate situation, but we should also not lose our pace, because what we should probably not have is a situation where in Europe we are the most top regulated area of the world with the AI Act, but actually no systems available to regulate. But I do see there are developments, and if we keep up that speed, then I think we can address that risk that is certainly there of again having a next level of technology that where all the music is played in other.
So at the moment, the draft of the Artificial Intelligence Act of the European Union, now what is published by the Commission, educational tools are assessed as high risk artificial intelligence, which probably will lead quite to a very narrow framework of regulation if it goes on like that.
I think one of the problems that we still see is there's a huge gap between what is being used and developed at university and what is happening in the education world and like publishers, because there's no real educational industry. And it's very hard to get developments that have been made at the university to scalable into the situation of being scalable products that really are used in schools. That has to do with regulations again. So which schools or where can you actually make use of those? It has to do with this idea, which is also present in teachers, that education shouldn't cost anything, and I would say it shouldn't cost anything for the target group. So everybody should have equal access to being educated, but that doesn't mean that we should save money on the policy level to have the cheapest educational system possible, because that's not going to work. And for that we need more interconnections and interplay and models of funding that brings together research institutions and the industry or the producers of educational products.
You're addressing equal access. That brings me to the question, does equal access already guarantee also more equality or justice in the education outcomes? Because we have realized that just using digital tools and implementing them in schools and having the students use them does not automatically lead to more equality. Sometimes it's rather vice versa, because those who are already are more talented or more skilled in self-organizing have a stronger educational background, social educational background, do well with these tools, and it rather widens the gap between those who are not performing that well in school and need more help. At least that's what we have seen in the first years of digitization, and now when we have a look at the results of the consequences of the shutdown during the COVID time, we see that very clearly. There's only a part of the students that profited from this situation, and the other one even got more problems. So now what has to be done really not in order to secure or even enhance the question of more individual help and more equality in educational success.
I guess the threat is certainly there also for AI technologies, the same way you've just laid it out for other kinds of technologies. It's even worse, I would say, because AI on the one hand, and that was in the introductory keynote as well, has a real huge potential to better address heterogeneity in classes by allowing for more adaptive education. But if AI is trained based on the data set that was not balanced, that it did not include certain minorities, for instance, then chances are that for these minorities, these systems will not work as fine. So it's really something to really first have in mind, that there is also the danger, and then you can probably embrace that in your technology design and also in the incorporation in the settings.
And I think one of the issues is that we are still not very good in the educational system in teaching students how to learn. So we are very much focusing on content, and yes, content is important, but we need students to know how to self-regulate their learning, how to deal with external resources, and that's one of the key factors, and this is actually one of the problems that we saw during the COVID pandemic, that students didn't know how to learn in a self-regulated manner at home.
So, and this is one hope or vision, that through AI we have more like something like a personal tutor for those who do not have the support through their parents or through, I mean, you know, in Europe and Germany we still have pretty like good educational systems, but in other countries they have like even less teachers, and they have like a very far, need to go far to go to school. So for them it could be really a game changer also in like learning how to learn and getting like knowledge and everything. So
to close that session, we've I think addressed quite a number of questions, also talked a bit about some solutions. At least what I learned is it's giving hope, maybe even confidence that we are able to cope with that, and at the end will not be dominated by artificial intelligence, especially in the educational system, but rather be able to use it. Just for your last remarks, what do you think? You already mentioned it will be your main hope, which will be the main innovation that artificial intelligence is able to bring into the educational system. Can you just say that just with one sentence, Mr. Pink?
I mean, adaptive instruction that is adjusted to a person's needs and prerequisites would still be my biggest game changer.
Okay.
Yeah, helping each individual student and being a support also for teachers to support them in their profession.
It's absolutely the same. So
Okay. Then we have one opinion and one statement at the end. Thank you very much for listening. And we'll see what we can report and what we can discuss within a year, probably. There's so much going on. Thank you very much for listening, also to the audience who's be there via streaming. And have nice discussions afterwards. And I do not know what about your time schedule right now. If you're still free a bit for some discussions here, bilateral, I think the audience maybe would appreciate that very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening.